First, we have to talk about Nigeria because there have things been going on. The president of the United States said a couple weeks ago, fam, if the Nigerian government is not going to protect our beloved Christians around the world, we will step in and do so. I am telling the Department of War to ready themselves to interact. It will be swift, it will be sweet, it will be beautiful, and it will be bold, and we will protect our Christian population. Now, when we heard that, fam, I don't know about you, but when I heard that, I immediately said, oh, how inconvenient it is to protect the Christians in Gaza, to protect the Christians in Syria, to protect the Christians in Iraq. Like, that's all, they're just being bombed. Jesus is under the rubble right now, but you want to talk about our beloved Christians. And it made, a bell go off in my head. I'm like, okay, what do we want in Nigeria? Well, I know that Nigeria in Africa probably has the most oil than any other African state out there. It's big. There's a lot of gold over there too as well. So I don't know, fam. Maybe we want the oil. What do you think, fam?
I mean, we're always after the resources. Yeah. But this has also been used as an opportunity for a lot of the people in the US to weaponize this against other minorities, whether it's, Muslims or whether it's other people. This whole idea that Christians are being attacked is being politicized. While it is happening, primarily it's being done by a lot of the same people, right? So a lot of the people behind the same attacks that we are seeing throughout. And I started talking about this my last podcast with Vanessa about how there is an attack on Christians, but it's a lot of that is coming from Zionists as well. So there's a lot to unwrap around all of this. So take it away.
I'm in the middle of this podcast too by Margaret Kimberly, Black Alliance, right? And it's interesting. So I haven't got through that whole thing, but I read some articles and I had to kind of digress, but she did set me straight on what's going on. And it's easy to call these things. This is a book right now that I got. It's called Covert Regime Change. I'm only into the first 20 pages, fam. It was actually recommended by Jeffrey Sachs on Judge Napolitano's show. And, I thought it would be just like another regime change book, kind of laying out what the CIA is. But this book is very interesting, fam, because as an actor, I remember that I would always try to have to find motivations for my lines. Like, why am I saying this? Why am I feeling this way? How should I react, right? And that kind of tapped into the abstract thinking. That's why I think art is so important. This book, and I'm only through the first 20 pages, speaks to exactly why we have regime changes, right? Like, sometimes it's more than just resource extraction and thrusting our monetary system on that country so we can then obtain and take those resources through austerity measures. But there's other reasons. There's regional hegemony, there's proxy wars, whatnot. And this book does a really great job of doing that. And it really says a lot to what's going on in Nigeria today, Nicaragua too, but Nigeria today. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of this kind of information that was put out publicly started earlier this year. Let's get to what happened. We heard Donald Trump say the other day that he was going to get ready the Department of War to bomb Nigeria because Christians are being slaughtered. I don't know if you remember this, fam, but when South Africa came to the White House, you probably do remember this several months ago, he played him the video of, once again, white people getting murdered in Africa. So he's been setting the table for these actions by duping the American people. And, unfortunately, a lot of people go along with it. 2 weeks ago, I debuted on this right-wing Christian radio show, and they were talking about helping out Christians in Nigeria. It was my first time, so I didn't say anything, but I said some stuff last show, which was this past Saturday, saying how the CIA actually funds Boko Haram. Play the video, Jayme. Let's take a look at this. This is the senator in a hearing. I believe it's Senator Perry from Pennsylvania. Take a listen. This was back in February.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel, entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan, because Pakistan's right next door. USAID spent $840 million in the last 20 years on Pakistan's education-related program. It includes $136 million to build 120 schools, of which there is zero evidence that any of them were built. Why would there be any evidence? The Inspector General can't get in to see them. But you know what? We doubled down and spent $20 million from USAID to create educational television programs for children unable to attend the physical school. Yeah, they can't attend it because it doesn't exist. You paid for it. Somebody else got the money. You are paying for terrorism. This has got to end. I yield, Mr. Chairman. Okay,
so that really kind of, fam, just really sparked a whole, chain of reactions. Then all of a sudden, foreign ministers, ex-ministers of Sudan, all these other countries were starting to finger, they would keep quiet about this, fam, because they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. There's obviously millions and billions of dollars of aid coming into these countries. So if you criticize their intelligence apparatus of playing games against you, you could get your hand slapped. But it then all of a sudden, fam, sparked a chain reaction and people started speaking. And then we started getting an idea. Now, this happened back in February. So February and March, we were kind of getting an idea. Oh, wouldn't you know? Now there's coming out evidence that, USAID through the CIA wing is funding Boko Haram. Why would they do that? Well, that's the military industrial chain that's going, right? Now we got to provide weapons, whatnot. We can present a solution because we create a problem. And that's what this book talks about. This is not just a one-off, fam. This is our behavior. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we do all over the world, and I think the Trump administration is tasked to pivot it to the South. We're seeing, and we will see, I think, during Trump's presidency, a momentary closure with Russia, Ukraine, and then pivoting to the global South, because the global South primarily has the areas that are, one, more resistant to empire, have been resistant or at least fighting it for some time, have had some sort of reawakening, especially in the Sahel region, against the neocolonialism of France, the neocolonialism of the British, and of the United States. And there has been strong pushback. We have seen it in Burkina Faso. We have seen it throughout the region. And so you're going to have a renewed focus on that in a way to crush it. As we mentioned, we're also going to have, too, the focus on the natural resources, whether it's oil, minerals, special minerals that will be used in this new revolution that we're entering in with big tech, with AI. And then you also have what is becoming part of a larger, broader, I think this is kind of, it's hard to picture it, but everything is connected. So we're talking about things at a global level now, how the world is changing, and everybody's been talking about multipolarity, right? And what that's going to look like. Well, that's going to look like multiple powers instead of just one. So people assume that that means that there's going to be equity, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that there will be more powers. You're going to have China, Russia included, perhaps Saudi Arabia, perhaps India coming to the rise. But a lot of the same people that have been pretty much exploited are still continuing to be exploited one way or another. And I really want to have a conversation with Marwa, because she wrote an excellent article on Sudan and how China's role in really keeping down the developments of Sudan via the exploitation of these minerals. So it doesn't matter who ultimately And I think this points to the global capitalist market. So there is a competition now, right? Especially between China and Russia, China and the United States. There's a huge competition between that. Who's going to be the top dog? And I think we can honestly say that China has surpassed the United States in many ways, not just what they provided for their people, but what they have done in terms of global capital growth. And they have amassed this ability to really be able to develop products and export them, whereas we import everything and we're extremely vulnerable. So I think this is all part of that. And the Trump administration has been tasked to essentially focus on that and carry this out. And of course, they're going to do it with the same playbook that they've been using for the longest time. So this is something that I think a lot of people haven't talked about, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because Africa is one of those areas where there needs to be much more of a focus than there has been. And there's so much that we don't know because it's just never been a part of it. But yeah, like Africa, South America, and Middle East, that's what we're looking at.
And, you can look back to, Obama with his, uplifting of sorts of AFRICOM, putting a lot of money into it, getting the drones ready. And then, Donald Trump came in and armed those drones. So let's go to the ex-foreign minister right now. This is from African Stream. Our good friend Ahmed Cabello did some great stuff. Nigerian minister drops Boko Haram USAID bombshell. On February 18th, former Nigerian foreign minister Balaj Akinyemi, I'll try to do that better, dropped a bombshell amidst revelations that the recently dismantled U.S. International Agency for Development, which is USAID, had allegedly been funding terrorist groups like Boko Haram. We'll let you hear him talk about it right now. We'll play the video. But fam, really quickly, I just want to say USAID has not been completely, get the video ready, Jayme. USAID has not been completely dismantled. There's still the wing of using it for regime change, and all this little money that Doge was talking about, and a lot of the populist right was screaming about it. I don't want to pay for gender studies in the Sudan and stuff. That's a small amount of the money they were spending for all this stuff. The majority of that money that went through USAID, and that wing is still operable, was for regime change. They were the PR firm for regime change. That's what they are. Plain and simple. And they still admit, once again, here is the ex-prime minister talking about it. And this is after the bombshell of Senator Perry saying this stuff on the floor. He then gave the power for these people to start questioning what happened. Listen to what he says.
I served on the Boko Haram committee. Now, 2 plus 2 at times has to be equal to 4. So even if I can't give you 4, but I can give you 2 plus 2, we will then have to come to the conclusion that I'm giving you 4. I served on that committee, and villagers kept telling us that in the middle of the night, helicopters piloted by white people kept landing and offloading guns, goods, and all kinds of and money to these people. Now, villagers they don't even know who these white people are, and they have no reason to lie to us. Now, we made a mistake. When I said some of us on the Boko Haram committee made a mistake. We thought it was the French that were doing this. Now we have an American congressman said, no, it was the Americans who were doing this. And when you then add that to the Obama administration refusing to sell weapons to us, to Nigeria, on the grounds that we had human rights violations in the way we were dealing with Boko Haram, not in the way we were dealing with ordinary Nigerians where there were no security issues.
I know that was a little bit long, but we needed to play that also. You can understand what was going on, fam. They were flying in helicopters. It's in the northeast region where Boko Haram exists. And just like we aided ISIS, just like we aided Al-Qaeda, we aided Boko Haram. They do our dirty work, right? And they bring instability, which is a big problem. And then the solution is American bombs get dropped. It's not a one-off, like I said before. This is our behavior. Fam, I got some more stuff. I got some more stuff from the generals and whatnot. If you want to see it, or do you want to say something about this right now? Because this is like, make sure you play that video right there, the one on the right with the general.
Just quickly, in terms of what he said, it's extremely important that people know that when it comes to Barack Obama, he was one of the worst possible figures and possible presidents of the United States for Africa. And that is precisely why the powers that be positioned him there, and specifically why he, as somebody with African descent, was specifically placed to really destroy much of Africa in many ways. And it is a reminder for all of the left liberals that want to, talk about only identity politics and only that sort of, symbolic BS. A reminder as to why that is weaponized against people. It's been weaponized, of course. Now we've seen it, with AOC. Yeah. We're seeing it with Zora Mamdani. We've seen it. Every single thing that the Democratic Party can weaponize, they'll do it. But notice how the Trump administration is continuing that same effort. Yeah. With a conservative administration, with the Republican administration. Ultimately, again, when it comes to foreign policy, there is no difference between the two. They just continue what the other didn't finish and rebrand it in a way that is acceptable to the current dominant perspective. And of course, after Joe Biden, you had the right populism become aware of things. And so now they're trying to market it, essentially. It's a giant marketing campaign. Market it to them so they accept it. The same way they've marketed surveillance via the border issue, the same way they've marketed the attacks on people and illegals as something necessary in order to protect Americans, and the narco war on drugs is an effort to protect Americans. This is why we have to go into Venezuela. This is why we have to go into Mexico. All of this is just basically marketing. Yeah. And so they're marketing, instead of a product, they're marketing an entire imperial agenda, essentially. And you have to buy that.
So we have the Sudanese president here back in 2015 talking about, fam, and this is something you had kind of alluded to, that it's not just the CIA, the Mossad is involved too as well. And it's just like, it's a colonization project going on over in Israel right now, in occupied Palestine right now. We have that same behavior, where what we did to the Native Americans over here, right? Wiped them out and stuff. So of course we're going to go along and aid our buddies. And that's the thing. We're doing this together in Africa because we are one and the same. That's it. That's who we are. We're attached to the hip. It's not one-offs, it's behavior right now. And the way we do things are disgusting. This is the Sudanese president back in 2015, fam.
He says the CIA and Mossad are behind Boko Haram and ISIL. He was speaking exclusively to Euronews in the week that ISIL released a video purporting to show the execution of 21 Egyptians.
I said CIA and the Mossad stand behind these organizations. There is no Muslim who would carry out such acts.
He says the CIA and Mossad are behind Boko Haram and ISIL.
And this, once again, this is the same behavior. And this is the groups we've been funding since the Mujahideen, right? The CIA in Russia, in Afghanistan, to ISIS, to Al-Qaeda, to funding. You see going on in Gaza right now today, Boko Haram in Nigeria. this is what goes on. This is what happens. This is what the CIA does. This is what the Mossad does. They work together for this. It's destabilization projects. It's resource extraction. Here's the general of the armed forces. He did an interview with Al Jazeera English, whatnot. And once again, he's being very careful, fam. You don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, right? You don't want to kind of just come out and accuse the United States there, because that can hurt on the funding that you're going to get. You don't want to do that. You'll be thrown out. So watch how careful he is. But he's kind of explaining, hey, man, this is an international. Get the UN here. Let them take a look at it.
I just can't understand why anybody will wake up and say that we're killing people when we're actually not doing the same. And guess what? Where the Giwa barracks you were talking about, we have all the humanitarian agencies working there. You have the UN working, local and international organizations are working. Are we saying they are complicit? There is nothing we're doing in the back. So if they don't say it, which means Amnesty International is equal, and Amnesty is equally there. So which means they're equally accusing all these other organizations of being complicit.
So just to be clear, you would be prepared to go to the ICJ in The Hague and answer these accusations?
We're not scared of anything because we don't have anything of such.
We've seen Boko Haram regroup and regroup and regroup. What is your answer to that? That you have in some way fed the insurgents?
The problem is that I think we've talked to the international community. Let's find out the funding. When they started surrendering, by the time we left, so as we speak, we have over 120,000 that have surrendered. Most of them, when you find them, they are coming with hard currencies. How did they get them? How are they funded? How did they get the training? How did they get the equipment?
What is your suspicion?
Well, maybe an international conspiracy. You don't know. Who knows? How are they be able to sustain themselves for 15 years? That is one question I think everybody should ask himself. For Nigeria to be able to hold them, and you go to Nigeria, everything seems to be working well.
You must have an idea. I mean, let's not talk about international conspiracy theories. Let's give some hard facts.
Well, I just leave it at that. I'm sure they know, and I'm sure everybody knows that these are the challenges we're facing, that needs to be addressed. So the UN need to come in to ensure that, because we need to trace the funding. How are they sustaining themselves for 15 years?
What does the UN coming in mean? What does that look like?
Track the funding. It's international flow. We don't have control over that.
Whose interest is it to see Nigeria destabilized?
Well, I don't know. You don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
To be fair, he doesn't want to say it, but he knows, right? Like, we know who's going to get rid of that. We know who's going to benefit from the destabilization of Nigeria. It's the next guy who gets in there, right? And now you have Donald Trump rehashing this, bringing this back up. Why? Because his base, once again, they're suckers for it, fam. You say Christians are being prosecuted. Oh, it's not, Israel, Gaza. They like to turn their head on that. They don't want to talk about that, right? They don't want to act Christ-like and call that out. But, Christians are being slaughtered in Nigeria. Go in there, Donald Trump. I mean, I'm so sorry, but they're very gullible, or they're purposely ignoring the facts, and they're okay with what's going on, fam.
It's hypocrisy, Pasta. It's because we can only be upset if it serves our interest. So it's like, for example, a lot of the people on the right now care about the Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria, but at the same time, they don't say much about what's happening in Syria and all the Christians being slaughtered there. As you mentioned, all the Christians in Palestine, all over the West Asia, by specific, former Al-Qaeda terrorists that are taking over. And so that is completely pushed aside because whatever, these are people that deserve it, or whatever kind of reasoning they want to make up for that. Right. And so now they're using this. And again, just like the Democrats weaponize ethnic groups for their ultimate political purposes, we're seeing that now in the right weaponize Christians all over the world, and depending on what's, efficient. So it is enraging, but we always have to, of course, go beyond our emotion and look at a little bit deeper as to why that's being fed to people right now. And that also ties into the immigration issue, the Islamophobia that we're seeing, not just in the United States, but also in the UK, with the likes of Tommy Robinson and others who are promoting this idea that it's just a bunch of Muslim men coming in and raping women, but when you look at the statistics, the majority of the rapists, and this is something I also talked about with Vanessa, are actually from the UK, and they do happen to be Caucasian, but those facts get pushed aside in order to push the narrative that, you know, it's a bunch of crazy radical Islamic jihadists coming in through the border. And the thing is, there are immigration issues, but again, we go back to, why is the United States in Africa? Why is the United States in Iraq? Why are they threatening the Middle East? Why are they doing all of this and then expecting zero blowback of their consequences? Same with Latin America, as you know.
So, Jayme, yeah, get the graphic up over here. This is from the TRT Africa article I got about the USAID. I just took a piece of it. Let me read it for you real quick, because after, and it pretty much, the article went over a lot of the things we've shown. I showed the videos, whatnot. So pretty much after this happened, after the senator blew the whistle, the president of Nigeria started, he recalled the senator to come to the Capitol and have conversations. They had, you know, they've had these committees before to look at Boko Haram, not understanding where the funding was going. At one point, they thought it was from France, fam, right? Mm-hmm. Because France has a longstanding, you know, history of being inside Africa, stealing the diamonds and all the resources, whatnot. But then after that happened, they're like, oh, no, man, the United States, they're blowing the whistle. That's who's coming for us now. France goes out. One superpower goes out. The other superpower goes in. Senator Ali Ndume from Nigeria's northeast region, where Boko Haram has been perpetrating, atrocities since 2009, pressed for a thorough investigation. He linked Perry's accusations to long-standing suspicions about international nonprofits aiding terrorist outfits in the region, including providing firearms and training. Nigerian security agencies have raised this issue indirectly several times. The government of Borno State has always been wary of the operations of some NGOs, Ndume said, referring to the state worst affected by the Boko Haram violence. And that's from TRT Africa. Fam, they're starting to put it together. They're putting the pieces together. Nigeria's trying to do everything to defend itself, saying this isn't a persecution against Christians, because even though they were killing Christians, in this particular situation, when they did the study, they saw that at one point more Muslims were being killed. You know what I'm saying? It's not about religion. It's about it's about unhinging the government over there at the aid of the United States, the West, the Zionists, to go in there and control those resources. Nigeria has a ton of oil, a lot of it, and the United States would like it. Just like Venezuela is evil too. Their person's evil now. You know, that this is what we got going on. Now you got the Trump administration lying through their fucking teeth. This guy is the worst, Donald Trump. I mean, his administration is the worst because, unfortunately, a lot of the conservatives and the populists right have their head in the clouds. They really do, right? And I challenge them. They say they're Christian to act more Christ-like. This is not good, right? You're not protecting Christians. As a Christian, you're supposed to care about all of God's children. And what's going on with the CIA is doing, not just in Nigeria, but in Latin America, in the Middle East, in West Asia, and all these other places, what they are doing is wrong. And it's evil. And it's being done at our tax dollar under our name. Look at this next tweet over here, fam. And this is what the capture, this is what I was so worried about, right? This is Wall Street Apes. Now, 1 second, Jayme, can you click on Wall Street Apes' bio, his name? Let's see how many people he got. What does he have? How many people? Look who follows him, right? Donald Trump. He followed by Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Donald Trump, Dan Bongino, Alex Jones, James O'Keefe. He's got 1.2 million views, right? And I noticed this Twitter account during Lahaina put a lot of great stuff up there, calling out Wall Street, acting like an anti-imperialist. Let's go back to his tweet now, right? I'm going to pull it up really quickly, fam, because this is the propaganda that we are faced with all the time over here in the United States. This is how they get these people. Ex-Muslim, all right? This is what they like to do. And I just experienced this right now, where a Christian is saying that, calling them Mohammedans or Muslims, right, that they are inherent liars, that they are permitted to lie, that they are evil, that there are so many bad things in the Torah. or the Quran, excuse me, right? You know, so many bad things, and ignoring all the stupid stuff in the Bible, like the fact that it says a rebellious kid can be stoned to death, that if you see somebody working on the Sabbath on Sunday, you should kill them. There are crazy things in the Bible. It's up to interpretation to leave the bad things out and realize that you're in modern day times and look at the good stuff, just like you should when it comes to communism and capitalism. But look at this here. This is the shit, the propaganda we are fighting against. Ex-Muslim man talking about the threat of Islam. Allah will install fear in the hearts of those who disbelieve Islam and Muslims. You cut their limbs by hitting their necks. Why do terrorist organizations such as ISIS, such as Boko Haram, even the Taliban behead people? It says it in the Quran. And then there's a whole video there, fam, of him. Jayme, let's play the first couple, like maybe the first minute. Let's go full screen real quickly. I'm going to take myself off. Play like a minute of this real quick, and then we'll talk about it.
The problem with Islam is that Islam is an absolutist religion where Muslims believe this is the word of God, aka Allah, and no man can ever question the word of Allah, which is extremely problematic, and it has no place in any civilized culture. So I'm going to go through the verses, and I want you to make up your own minds, okay? So let's go through it one by one. Chapter 2, verse 98. Allah is an enemy of non-Muslims. Chapter 3, verse 85. No other religion is accepted other than Islam. Chapter 8, verse 12. Allah will instill fear in the hearts of those who disbelieve Islam and Muslims. You cut their limbs by hitting their necks. And as you know, why do terrorist organizations such as ISIS, such as Boko Haram, even Taliban behead people? Where do you think they get that from? It says in the Quran. Chapter 3, verse 118. Make only Muslims your intimate friend. Chapter 3, verse 28, and chapter 9, verse 23. Do not make friends with non-Muslims. And maybe that's why some Muslims, they don't assimilate when they come to the UK or anywhere else for that matter. They stay in their own group because it's in the Quran. Well, don't make friends with non-Muslims. Chapter 8, verse 39. Fight non-Muslims until the faith of Allah is fully established. And that is basically a call to action. And as I always said, one of the responsibility of Muslims is to do jihad and to Islamize the whole world. I'm not saying it. This is in the Quran.
All right. So you get the gist of what's going on, fam. And I know this is like an old tactic, but it has really been revamped, reignited since the Trump administration. The theocratic mentality is back in. I see this all the time. Mondami's victory sparked this on that Christian show that I was on. They couldn't stop talking about that. That was a big thing, as if, you know, Sharia law is coming to town. I mean, from this milquetoast guy in America. I mean, please, you know, this is scary. And that video over there only had 150,000 views. That's little for that account. But this is the constant shit we're going through right now. These are the voices that were elevated when they made the switch to the Republican Donald Trump administration. Our voices still got down. Jared Beck still doesn't have his account, the guy who brought out the Bernie Sanders lawsuit against the DNC. The constant propaganda that's in our faces all the time. This is what we're battling. You couple this right over here, where Muslims are bad, Christians are the right religion, the Jewish people are the chosen ones, right, from the Zionists. You couple all this together, Christians are getting slaughtered here. The next thing you know, bombs are dropping over there. This is what we're facing. The behavior hasn't changed. It's just accelerated. And it's taken on a new, different face of marketing, fam, for what we're going to see, which is constant empire. Go ahead, fam.
Yeah, so one, we need to mention the X propaganda and how certain influencers are being used to promote certain narratives. And you're seeing that's one of the major ones, the Islamophobia, the, you know, turning against Muslims, because especially one, Israel has been exposed thoroughly. The United States has been also exposed thoroughly throughout the genocide in Gaza. So you're seeing now the backlash to that, right? And Mamdani, of course, is an example of that. He's a radical Islamist communist, right? Or he's none of that. And that also doesn't mean he's good either, but he's none of that, what they're saying. And then you're also seeing the UK stuff that I mentioned with Tommy Robinson. All of these voices are there to push this narrative. And that narrative, who does it help? It helps the Zionists. It helps imperialism, because it allows the to the manufacturing of consent for more intervention, for more war. And, you know, as Pasta mentioned, the reality is every single dogmatic religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, or Judaism, they all have something in them that is seen as radical or extreme. And to use an former Muslim man or former believer of Islam to promote this is the same thing that the right does with Black Americans who say that racism doesn't exist and blah, blah, blah. And they get on their soapbox and they advocate for this. The same way, of course, the other side does it as well. They need these figures in order to promote the propaganda, because what's more valid than a former Islamic believer getting up there and telling you how bad Islam is? I mean, they're going to swallow it up entirely. I mean, this is what sells. So they got this guy on there and they got him promoted by the major accounts on X that get seen all the time, no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. And this is now the new form of propaganda, because they figured out that they don't need ads. They don't necessarily need mainstream media. Now they've gone and taken our independent media space and captured it. And this is what I've been talking about now for a while, guys. You can't just agree with something a random person says on X and think that they're on your side, because why they're saying it matters. And when that pivot comes, you won't be surprised if you actually do your research and say, who's this account? Where are they from? When did they show up? What exactly is their aim in promoting certain things and not promoting certain things? Like, you have to be vigilant, because if we're going to be free speech people, we also have to be aware of all the kind of bullshit that you're being fed and propagandized with too, because I'm all for having a free internet. Simultaneously, though, you got to be a little bit smarter than just assuming that because somebody says free Palestine, that it's the same thing as, say, somebody else. And that's it creates more work for us, because then we have to talk about the nuances of things that are being thrown out there. Nobody's saying that, all dogmatic religions are perfect, or that Islam is perfect, or that Christianity is perfect. But how are you talking about Islam right now when the ones that are killing and causing chaos throughout the world right now are Zionists? And of course, that's now being put
and Christians
on the back burner. Yeah, and Christians, but like let's be real. I mean, right now it's the expansion of Greater Israel combined. It's Christian Zionism is essentially what's taking over, and that's like not that's being like whatever. What in an effort to highlight the danger of Islam. And it works on so many people, because so many people have never been to a Middle Eastern country. So many Americans have a perception that the Middle East is just a bunch of like desert and bombs and people that have faces covered up. That's literally what they think. If you talk to a regular normie, they don't have any concept of what it is. They don't know how beautiful Iran is. They don't know how many interesting things there are to see there, or Iraq, or any of these places in the region. And like, they have no idea. And when I've had these conversations, when I'm like, oh, I was in Lebanon, or it's so beautiful. It's like Italy. They're like, what are you talking about? Oh my God, Lebanon. It's the same thing that they've said about Russia. It really, that's the mentality that we're working against. And so it's very tough to do that and like undo years and years of brainwashing, right? That we've been just growing up with.
And fam, you talked about the timing of a lot of this stuff, what's going on with Venezuela, with the elections coming up in Honduras at the end of this month, in a couple weeks. Jesus, in 3 weeks, we got an election. Less than 3 weeks, we got an election in Honduras. Next year, we got an election in Nicaragua. Mandami getting elected, right? Like I said, if I was going to write a script and I want to divide the people even more right now and get them into ideological battles, I'd put Mandami in play. It doesn't surprise me that Donald Trump is talking about bombing Nigeria because Christians are being killed right when Mandami's getting elected, because that's what's really stirred a lot of the people up here. They feel that their Christianity is under attack, that Sharia law is coming to America. And once again, I said, if you can find out a way to make a person a victim, they'll go along with anything. You're a victim. Christianity's Christians. You're under attack. They were trying to. This is the stuff that Nick Fuentes said the other day, right? Like he pivoted right to it. There's a Holocaust of Christians. Yeah. Give me a fucking break, Nick Fuentes. Give me a break, everybody out there. They got you. They're playing with you again. This is not anything to do with religion. This has to do with oligarchs and the 1% taking the resources and not giving a damn about human life in general, except their own. And that's what we're facing. Constant propaganda.